Good evening, everyone. This is, well, we're burning the midnight oil, almost midnight here, almost 1,154 days, but we're just making it 1,153 days since Richard vanished from the barracks there at Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas. But he didn't just vanish, he was murdered. He was code redded. I know that's not a word. Um, that's what I call it, a code redded, because it was a process. It was a process of retaliation against a whistleblower. It was a process, I think, to scare him, and they did. And they did. By the end of it, he was scared. He bought a weapon. He bought a weapon 5 days before he was murdered. And yesterday was a breaking news day because a soldier, an active duty soldier, who has been there at Fort Bliss for ever since this happened. Um, this is what is amazing because the people that are entrusted to protect Richard, a whistleblower, entrusted to be mentors, to train these soldiers, to season them as service members of the United States defending the Constitution, um, betrayed Richard. And those that betrayed, and I'm talking about his chain of command, they were, they were transferred, they were PCS'd, um, they were deployed, they did not flag the units. We said that from the very beginning. You had a soldier that absolutely clearly was retaliated against. We saw that right from the very beginning. And um, if you were CID, you would absolutely know that he was murdered. And yet they spent millions of dollars, millions of taxpayers' money to cover this up. And they could cover it up because you have to remember this is 2020. This is COVID. This is COVID. COVID helped them cover it up. And another case, I believe, helped them cover this up. They, this is the military. They are very used to organizing operations, and this was a code red operation and cover up on a whistleblower that pulled on a string, that was blowing the whistle on something that they didn't want uh, known. They didn't want known. So I wanted to make that really clear. And I wanted to talk about the CID connection with Richard a little bit. I have really just about 10 points here that I wanted to cover on the live stream for today. And let's see if I'm on. Let's see if everything is working. Yep. Okay. All right. I can see all the questions now. If you have a question for me. Thank you, Anicia. Thank you for coming on so late. And I am late because, it seems like so many things are happening because we have so many, agencies. We're getting the institutional support, which maybe I can cross that out. I had it at number 6. But we did get confirmation today that Samoa, this would be Western Samoa, or it's called Samoa. It used to be called Western Samoa. This is where Leilani Hart is from. We did get confirmation that they are investigating Leilani Hart. And number 2, that they are absolutely aware that she is a convicted criminal in the United States of America. So that is a big institutional help right there. And remember that institutional help, institutional support, plus evidence, which we have gotten lots of evidence and we're getting more and more evidence, irregularities, and circumstantial evidence, that will equal accountability. So institutional support plus evidence equals accountability. And so that's what we're working on right now to keep this live stream going is what gives helps us get that institutional. It's crucial. Let's just say it. It is crucial in getting the institutional support because if we had, uh, and that's absolutely my tech guy said we're being shadow banned. Um, so share, share, share. It is these live streams. It is the sharing. It is the people talking about Richard's case. It is the signing of the petitions. It is creating your own memes about Richard, your own questions, anything in public is what gets the institutionals to do something, to move. And that's why controlling narratives is so important. And, that's why you see censorship being more and more of an issue. And in this case, we cannot let that happen. They have tried very hard to shut us down, to silence us by being derelict in their own duty, not responding to our requests for years, not responding to our FOIAs for years, which is illegal. And, so it's the TikTok, which we reached 3,600 subscribers on TikTok. And, we don't have trillions of dollars. We don't have a money digitizer at our fingertips to fund millions of dollars to a cover up of a missing soldier. We don't have that. So we have to work really hard, and we've been working every day very hard for 1,000, over 1,100 days easily. And so this is what will get the institutional support. It's the people. It's the very people that really do care about our service members, about our country, about the corruption, about the collusions, about the compromises that are being made that are doing so much damage and causing so many people to lose their lives and so many people to get hurt. So this is very, very important. So thank you so much, and we love you for supporting us in this. So I want to talk about the CID and Richard's role in the CID and law enforcement. And I made that point weeks ago when we found out all of this with Park University, that we absolutely knew that Richard wanted to go into law enforcement. We absolutely talked to Soto. We showed him Richard's official inquiry to go into the CID, and talked to Special Agent Soto right at the beginning about Richard's requesting to be in the CID, and he was totally aware of Richard's request to go into the CID, and they wrote him back, and they, were saying, giving him the protocol, giving him the avenue of what he needed to do to go CID. And so one of those things was to start taking some courses, right? And so he enrolled. So he enrolled right away. This is 2018 for a criminology. Who would teach that course? That was Thomas Kane. That was Thomas Kane, the DES, the chief of security of Fort Bliss. That's who taught the course. So absolutely he knew Richard. He knew Richard. And what's really appalling about this whole thing is that we put in an open records request. We sent him a letter. We sent him, I believe it was an email requesting information about Richard, about the surveillance cameras, about many, many different things that he would have control over, about the gates, about so many things. And he he refused on purpose to answer, to give any kind of response to our open records request. And then after that, he put in his retirement. He retired. Um, that is appalling. But I found out today through Rob's, we're always researching, um, that that does not free him from committing the crime. And I think I have to go check again, but I think that's a felony to obstruct justice like that. Okay? That is an obstruction of justice to not answer an open records request to the family of a missing, or just to do that in a case like this. Um, so that's a crime. He committed a crime. And here he is to know that he knew Richard, that Richard was in his class, and absolutely, we are absolutely convinced that Richard was in the CID internship there in 2019 when he returned back. And we even have those that were with him. Uh, so that is really some breaking news there to wrap your head around. It's to see that somebody would know the missing soldier, would not come forward, would have the ability to tamper with video, delete video, control the gates going in and out. We know that he was up to no good because he's the one that gave the special passes to the young party girls to come in during COVID at the request, I guess, of Clem Coward and Command Sergeant Major Jakovitz. So we knew that they were up to no good, that they were creating a culture for our soldiers that would make them weaker, that would make them stumble and fall. And you know what God says about putting stumbling blocks in front of his children. He doesn't take that too lightly. And yet that's exactly what they were doing. They were trying to destroy our military from within with all of that. And that's what's been going on. And so that's kind of the theme right now. And I put up on a Telegram site, and I needed to do it on the Facebook site. But I don't have a big staff, so and I don't say that complaining. I'm saying that in comparison to what the military has with all of its institutional support in order to find Richard, and they misuse it. They misuse their power. They abuse their power. They misuse their funding. Matter of fact, they commit crimes and fund crimes with it. And this is very important for the taxpayers to know. The taxpayers that have been hypnotized, such like me, hypnotized into believing that our military is defending our country, our Constitution, when in fact they have been taken over by a chain of command that is misusing our service members, misusing our volunteer sons and daughters to serve foreign and domestic enemies, to serve a business plan, to line their pockets, to create an economy out of the military that is not for defending the Constitution, but for um, making making people rich off of war, making people rich off of war, and are hurting so many people in that wake, in their wake. So that is really important for, because that's been an epiphany for me, for our family. We knew that there was corruption in our military, but we didn't realize how extensive it is. And when you're talking about Fort Bliss, there's always been this talk of even needing Fort Bliss because Fort Bliss is prime property for El Paso. And, do we really need Fort Bliss? There's been that debate, and I believe there was even a congressman that saved the day. Um, maybe someone will tell me who he is, but that he saved the day to save Fort Bliss. Fort Bliss has been like, scheduled to be on the chopping block to get rid of. And I'm telling you right now, I think El Paso would do better without Fort Bliss. Now, that, puts me in a contentious situation, but I think that's prime property. They don't pay taxes for that property. They're just up to no good. They're servicing a criminal syndicate there, and I'm going to tell you more about that today also. And and so I think that El Paso would do much better without it. And I know that people are like, wait a minute, the economy, the economy. Um, there is more to life. There's more to life than just having an economy of, servicing prostitutes or drugs, or even, people still have to eat hamburgers and do it's not like the people would go away. There's so many people. And I know in South Carolina, our prices have gone up here for property because so many people are coming here because there's so many jobs here. So instead of a criminal military class, why don't they, because look, we've been fed that all military is noble and true and good and everything. I don't believe that anymore. I don't believe that anymore at all. And I'm going to get to why with this whole arms room situation. I think the arms room was a gateway, and and that's why you see the arms room being the place of crime, violent crime, in so many of these cases. And I can say in Vanessa Guillen's case, and now from this soldier that has come forward, um, in our son's case, and I'll connect that with the tactical move storage unit, with Van Buren, with the plane, with these areas where partial remains are found. It all connects together, and it's one crime after the next, one crime after the next. So I really would love for people that are patriots, because I know that this is like, what is she saying? I think patriots need to reevaluate our military. And I think it's being mismanaged. Look at what happened with this fighter, this stealth fighter, that crashed and they couldn't find it for 28 hours. I mean, that should tell you something. that our equipment, that our military, that our service members are being mismanaged. And um, and why do we even need it when we're being invaded? We're being invaded on so many fronts, and we're being destroyed by just the digitizing of our monies and blocking our use of energy. There's so many ways to win a war. You don't have to use tanks and stealth fighters. Um, so I just think we need to reevaluate and rethink what it means to defend a country. Does it defend a country to have the best farmers ever and the best food ever? Yeah, that defends a country. What are we in the process of doing? Destroying our farmers and making the food costs go way up. Food costs should be way, way down, way low. Okay, and healthy foods. And we need to have the best water, the cleanest water, the most structured water, spring water. So that would be defending the country. And cheap, cheap. If you want a healthy country, you have very, very cheap and very, very good water, because that's what makes people healthy is water. The ability to clean and bathe and cook in good clean water and drink good clean water. It's very, very important to the defense of the country. And we don't see that being emphasized. We don't see any monies being put toward there in comparison to the military, right? So there is more ways to win a war, and having a very solid currency is very important to the success of a country. And yet we're in $33 trillion of debt because of mismanagement and the digitizing of debt and selling that off to other countries to own us. To own us. We are creating a slave country instead of a healthy country. So this is really, really important. And we need borders. We need borders. That's another. And this is not from me. This is from Justinian. Well, Justinian. Where's Justinian? Let's see if I can move this where you can see Justinian a little bit. There's Justinian and Theodora, right? This is from a study that I did, and I've mentioned it many, many times. Brilliant study of why Byzantium was the longest lasting empire ever in the history, and we really don't study it. So he was saying farming, water, money, borders, very important, and the rule of law. And the rule of law, the support, the defense of property, private property. Unlike what happened to us, our home being unjustly searched by an assault unit without a warrant. Okay? We cooperated, but it was unjust. It was a crime. And it shows you that they were so bold to do that. That's very dangerous. Very dangerous. No respect for private property. That's a way to destroy a country. So this arms room situation with Richard is a gateway, I believe, from the research that I've been doing. It's a gateway for a criminal syndicate, a business plan. Taking, and this is not me, This is just doing a little bit of research, but the theft coming out of the arms rooms is huge. Huge. This is huge. And, you know, weapons, ammunition, and it's right there on the border. And it seems that this is why so many violent crimes are committed in the arms room, because when a soldier that has a moral compass, that has moral fortitude, is not approving of Americans being openly robbed by their own military, um, and sold over the border, sold, transferred, sold over the border, you know, and protected at the highest levels from prosecution. And you see this in Richard's case. So Richard absolutely was reporting, I believe, on the weapon smuggling, as well as, you know, the other child sex trafficking, the pornography, but absolutely the weapon smuggling. And that's why it was coming out of the armory. And that's why this soldier was saying that the incident that murdered Richard happened in the armory. And if they're smuggling, they smuggle into, in my opinion, they smuggle into these tactical move storage units. And so they had that already, you know, that's part of a business plan. They already have it all organized. And that goes to their next destination. And that's why there was this tampering of Richard's remains, the transfer of Richard's remains. And I want to make that very clear that in Texas, I looked that up, and it is a felony. It's a felony to tamper with remains. And it is also a felony to not report a serious crime. Okay? To not report a serious crime is a felony. And I think that that's very, very important, because it's very clear that whatever we find out that is coming out now, it's cracking. The dam is cracking. And it has been cracking, but it's a thick look. This is a chain of command. This is, you know, years of them doing this. This is not just something new that Richard discovered. It's just that Richard was new to Fort Bliss. A lot was going wrong at Fort Bliss for a long time. So much so that they were going to close it down. But then I think it was a congressman who saved the day for the criminal cabal there, right? Unfortunately. So, and this is so difficult for me to report on, which Angela Kucherga should be doing, right? The PAO should be doing, should be reporting on this. That the transfer of remains, the tampering of remains, and that's why the reports of Richard being in uniform has a very high chance of being the truth, that Richard was in uniform, because most likely he was on duty. You know, they can say, oh, wait a minute, maybe the 45 days. I don't know about the whole thing. It needs to be all worked out, but there is a chance that he was in uniform. And with it being in the arms room, a big chance. And that there was weapon smuggling going on, huge chance. The reports of the tactical move storage unit make sense. And the reason why the tactical move storage unit was mentioned is that's where they stored temporarily Richard's remains to figure out what they were going to do. So the incident happened. They were there anyway to smuggle. They had the tactical move storage unit. They stuck him in there. Then they had to, I guess, arrange with Thomas Kane. I don't know who they would who they would arrange it with, to move his remains to Van Buren. And this is the information that we're getting. If you know different information, please call 941-677-0060. But the information that we're getting, that the CID should confirm or deny, that the FBI should confirm or deny, that the Inspector General will be looking into or is already looking into, that the Department of Justice will finally, after denying us, will finally, with this institutional support, let us know what is the case. But what we heard was the processing, the chopping up, let's just say it, the chopping up of my son's body was at Van Buren. And then they, I guess they boxed him or bagged him, I don't know. And then that's where it went on the plane, and that's where they put his remains in different locations because they could not have another Vanessa Guillen. So this was a very orchestrated murder and cover-up. This was more than that. This was a very orchestrated retaliation of a whistleblower, a code red murder, and a very expensive millions of dollars for the cover-up. And the millions of dollars came from the taxpayers, which I think is appalling. And is there a chance for that? Of course. Look at what they did with A.G. Paxton. I think that is a very good example. And Dan Patrick, he is a lieutenant general of the lieutenant governor of Texas, who presided over that case, and he has now ordered an audit for that trial, every dime spent. So that is very, that's going to be very telling and very important for this case. Okay, very important, because we have an open records request out for what this case cost. And the information we're getting back is millions of dollars. But we'll see. We'll see. The other thing that I want to tell you is that in the New York Post, there was an article about that the FBI had lost count of how many paid informants they had sent to January 6th. And I can tell you right now, of course, they had so many. They have so many. They spend billions on hiring these informants. And I will tell you, in our son's case, we also have paid informants, paid FBI, agents, right? I wouldn't say they're FBI agents. What would you call them? Informants, right? The FBI informants. Absolutely. Those that are there to skew a narrative, to point you into a different way, to obstruct justice. It is very, very criminal. And which leads me to revisiting, with the plane, with this FBI informant report coming out that I was like, absolutely, we've experienced that. It made me remember the lead of McKilligan Canyon. And McKilligan Canyon, um, and also the paralegal, not no, the paranormal, sorry, the paranormal, um, which I need to go and review again, because I might have to eat crow with her, and really apologize because there's something with Veronica Escobar's McKilligan Canyon lead and the paranormal lead, just dropping a piece of Richard down from a plane, I guess, anywhere in the desert. Um, I don't know if that's a possibility. Uh, it, you know, the, uh, cr- crazy in this crazy world and this crazy case, um, with such a lack of communication, which is also criminal. It's absolutely a possibility. And so I want to talk about McKilligan Canyon, because there was another article that came out in, let me see if I can check here. Yeah, just like they did with Vanessa, exactly. Um, they need to give us Richard's remains, absolutely, but they didn't want to have another Vanessa Guillen, so they had to really separate all of Richard's parts. Um, so yeah, it's another Vanessa, and that's why they had to cover it up, because you have to remember Richard went missing the same month that they announced uh, that the remains found near the Leon River were Vanessa's. So that was a very same month. And, you know, they were in trouble. They were in trouble. And so that is one of the reasons why they did this. But it's not the only reason, because what Richard was complaining about, what would hurt their pocket, in many different ways. So Veronica, the article in the Mexican paper, and I have it. Let me see if I can um, get to it here. But what it stated is, Veronica months ago, she contacted us to say that Castner Range was now a national park. And we thought, well, that's strange. Why would she do that? She doesn't answer our other. Well, she did. She did this soldiers' inquiry for a congressional. She did answer that, so that was good. But you know, she didn't when it comes to other things that she could easily answer. So I have it here because I want to give you the article. I think it's really important if I put it in the right place. Maybe I didn't. Let's see. Let's see if I can find it. No. Let me see if I can find it on here. Oh, yeah. Here I have it. On Dario. Dario.mx. DIARIO.mx / L dash Paso dash anyway, and then it's in Spanish. The continuation, lucha para proteger Castner Range. But it is about Castner Range, and I translated it, and it's really important. It just came out. I have Richard's, um, well, my really, really good friend, she speaks Spanish, and so we translated it. I wanted to hear her view because even if you use some of these translators, things get lost in the translation. And I know even with culture, things get lost in the translation. So I wanted to hear her opinion on it. Um, and what really came out is that the United States Army will manage Castner Range, the national park, making it the first national monument um, that the entity, Fort Bliss, um, or the United States Army, will operate in over 90 years. So now, finally, Fort Bliss has a mission, right? They have a mission because they really don't have a mission. Why are they there? And so, after 90 years, the Army is going to control a national monument, um, a national park. I think that is really very, very interesting why they will have control over that. And maybe that's a good thing because it made me, uh, because I don't trust Veronica Escobar. I think she's up to no good at all. And I have, and I, uh, really tried to work with her at the beginning. But it was very clear that she is not genuine. She's a fake. She is full of vanity. She has her own agenda. And, and I hope that the people, that's why I did this petition, why Team Fine Richard Halliday did the petition, to make sure that she knew that this soldier that wanted this congressional inquiry will get her support, get her to do her duty. Because an active duty soldier asking for a congressional inquiry is not the same as me or any civilian doing it, because he um, he can't just quit. He can't just quit and walk away. If he has gone through his chain of command and they won't help him, who's going to help him? It has to be Veronica Escobar and the congressional inquiry, right? And so she needs to help him. That is the big things, the big reason why Team Fine Richard Halliday put forth this um, support. We didn't know what else to do because we don't know him. Um, but we do know that he knows Leilani. We do know that he knows Dallas Hart. We do know that in his congressional inquiry, he mentions our son's case. And so we just wanted to thank him very, very much and put a hedge around him and a prayer hedge around him. And that's why we created this petition. So you can please sign it. Please get other people to sign it. But back to McKilligan Canyon. This was the lead that was coming out of Veronica Escobar's office when we were there in Fort Bliss. And, remember, I don't know if you've been with us for that long, you will know that Rob, feared for his life 3 times on that hike. He went up that canyon. He went up those cliffs. You have to use chains to crawl up them. And he did really well. And Veronica Escobar's office called and said, "Oh, we didn't know that he would do so well on that hike." So what's in that canyon? Because we went up, but we didn't go down. We didn't search down. And something is going on with this canyon. We believe it needs to be searched for Richard's remains, because with this this institutional support that we're getting information, of course, Red Rio Range. We're getting information about Kilometer 29. We're getting information about McKilligan Canyon. Also in several different places. Of course, Area 244 on Fort Bliss. So they were spreading Richard's remains out in different locations, and we need to search that area. We need that area searched. And remember when the paranormal came? Then, there was, and I never even called for a search, and it mentioned the arms room. It mentioned him being in parts, and at that time, I did not think that that was possible. That they could have his head here and his torso here, and you know, um, and so they went up to look for his remains out in the desert, and it was very hot there. So the looking back on that, we might not have, being here when my father was so sick, we might not have thought that that was possible. But the people in El Paso, the people on Fort Bliss, thought it was possible. And so that backs up this soldier that said Richard was never a missing soldier. He was always deceased. It is an open secret. It's an open secret in El Paso and Fort Bliss that Richard is deceased. And that's why they don't do a quarterly search for Richard. That's why they don't put out any kind of PAO announcement, because people would be like, what? What are you talking about? It's an open secret that Richard has never been a missing soldier, that his family is just being strung along, not given uh, the remains, not given the truth, and that he has always been deceased, and that it happened in the arms room, and then the other information that we're getting from a separate source is that they use the tactical move storage unit to store evidence, including his remains, until they could figure out what they were going to do. And then they transferred it to the Van Buren home, where they proceeded to process his remains and take it to a plane, and the plane and maybe another vehicle, but that the plane had a part in taking his remains to different locations. So especially south. So this is why this is very important information, how this is all being pieced together. And the general is in then, a pickle. He's in a pickle because everything is coming out, and we have communicated with him over and over and over again. And, I think he needs to come clean, maybe become a whistleblower, maybe, I don't know, tell us what is going on his base. But we're getting from the soldiers that he's just trying to go through. And, I hope that he doesn't try to PCS or get transferred, because the soldiers don't even seem to know his name. They just call him CG. They don't, he doesn't really want to make himself known to the soldiers. And a lot of things are wrong on Fort Bliss, and the soldiers are being suicided, and they're being harmed, and they're not getting the support that they need. And so, yeah, he's in a pickle, and he needs to do what's right. And we need to ask him to do what's right. We've been asking him with lots of letters, and keep sending him letters. Keep sending him. Let him know that he might not want to know his soldiers, but we want to know him. We want to know him, and we want him to do his duty. He's the one that's wearing our beautiful uniform. He's the one that has the 2 stars. He's the one that's responsible, okay, for getting this all together. He's the one that can do it, and we need to remind him of that. So that's really, really important. The next thing, so here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, let's talk about the divorce. the divorce between Leilani Hart and James Hart, um, it seems to be like on hold. Okay, it seems to be on hold, but there's a lot of information. When you go through a divorce, there's a lot of public information out there. And so God has just, blessed us with having access to all this information. And and there's a lot of wrong going on Fort Bliss, and there's a lot of wrong going on in the Hart family, and that she, her criminal past, her criminal complaint that was notarized was part of Richard's case. That a key witness wrote a complaint to the CID and the FBI that she was tampering with Richard's file, that they were tampering with video, and she has a connection to Thomas Kane. She has a connection to Ann Ogle because of Park University, and her want to be in law enforcement too. This is what's so insane about this whole thing is that Leilani Hart wanted to be a law enforcement officer. So that's how she met Richard. I believe they were in that same law enforcement um, agency path. They were on the same road. And of course, with Park University, of course, with CID, and that office is very small. The CID office is very small. So if he was doing an internship in that 7 people office, of course he would know Tavita Nusa. Of course he would know Soto. Of course he would know Leilani Hart. And with Dallas Hart being his platoon leader, then of course he's going to know them even more so. And of course he's going to know Thomas Kane. Of course he's going to know Ann Ogle. Of course he's going to know several other people that I can go on and on. It makes all the sense, and he also then would have the ability, especially as a guidon bearer for his unit, and then being in close to CID and law enforcement, and even being an intern, he could see things that were wrong. He could see the criminal cabal at work. And that's why the IG were all over the barracks because of Halliday. That's why the CID had complaints. That's why the CPS had complaints, the Child Protective Services. That's why he handed in sex videos. So this was, and this is all information we're getting. If you have other information that could clarify or deny what we have gathered together, please call 941-677-0060. So that's really important. But this divorce, absolutely, the infidelity, the saying, my husband has committed adultery with Lisa Lennon Williams at the VA and is committing fraud. So this is, very important information because, the same information is coming up over and over throughout the years. And, why isn't she arrested if it's false? Who is protecting them if it's not false? And she's also saying that it is insupportable cruelty he had against her, inhumane treatment. But I want to make sure that everyone knows that if you are a civil servant, you are in the VA, and you are, in a very important role with IDES, Pablo, you're on the health board for veterans deciding to get their benefits, their disability benefits, and that you have access you have the clearance to access their files and their health files. You have that kind of trust put in you, but yet you are being deceptive. That is what adultery is. It is an act of deception. And so that is why when you commit adultery and you're in that kind of position, then you absolutely should lose your job. That's why that law is there. That's not me. That's what the UCMJ says. You can't do that, and especially with a coworker, especially when you're having an adulterous extramarital affair with a coworker, and then there's claims of fraud, and then there's all these hard feelings, and then it is a moral hazard because then you want people to cover you up, and then you offer them favors to cover you up. It's a big, big problem. And I know that we have not held our leaders to a high standard on that. And that's why we're in the mess that we are in, because our leaders have no standard anymore. They are low standard on high dollars, and that's a huge moral hazard, right? And they're putting our children then in moral hazard, and then that becomes a mental and a physical hazard. So yeah, it's really something that I just wanted to mention. It's very, very serious and detrimental to our national security. And that's why, of course, Theodora and Justinian made sure that property law and also any kind of sexual laws were totally moral and were in alignment with God's word. Very, very clear. You need to go look up Justinian's Codex. Theodora had a major hand in family law and inheritance law, and of course property law. So because those went hand in hand, so that is an absolutely. I've had Theodora as my icon for so long. And that is a witness that Richard knew Theodora, Justinian law, and the moral hazard, the detrimental effect that holding our leaders, holding all of us to such a low standard is the destruction of our country. Okay? He absolutely knew that. And so, and I'm not telling you that he was not susceptible to their threats, to their intimidation, to their retaliation, months and months of retaliation, and severe retaliation and continuous retaliation, and the lies and the smears, and also the name calling. The language was so severe against him. I have screenshots or after screenshots, and here he is, 20 years old, turning 21 in June 24th of 2020, and just brutal. They're just brutal. And so, of course, the last video, when he bought, 5 days before he went missing, a pistol because he feared for his life, he also made an apology. He was crying, and I haven't showed that video at all because, Richard did such a great job standing against them. And when you're that young, you still are afraid. You're still so afraid to tell people the enormity of what he was facing. I don't think, I know that a unit member came to me and said, I thought he was a pathological liar. And I said, really? Why? And he goes, yeah, let me tell you, because he said he was born in Poland. He said that he grew up in Ireland, in Germany, and that, he never went to school except for, Volkshochschule, or, the Korean culture and language school, or, barista school in Dublin, um, you know, and I just thought he was a pathological liar. And then I found out it was all true. I said, yep, that's true. And, so here he is, being sent to El Paso, into the lion's den. And, one of those lion is a lioness named Leilani Hart, ready to eat these young soldiers up and spit them out. And, yeah, so it really is a crime that our leadership allows that, protects it, and then when another whistleblower comes out, to allow the likes of El Paso Matters, um, and Angela Kucherga, who has connections, y'all. She has family connections, with all of this. So there's a reason beyond, you know, political or whatever. There's other reasons. And to, get the phone call, hey, sister, not that this is her brother, but let's just say, in a gang, brother, sister, hey, sister, I got some people over here that you need to do a little job on to retaliate against a key witness in a missing soldier's case. You think you can do it? Oh, yeah, honey, I can do it. This is, and I'll make it good. I'll make it good. And I don't have to do a background check. And that is very, um, it's obvious that there was something more to it, because a simple, basic background check would tell you that this was all a lie, that Leilani Hart is a convicted criminal, that Poche, uh, is limited if you're 100% disabled. So is Leilani, right? So both of them 100% disabled, getting what? I know my mom, because my dad at the end got 100% disability, rightfully so, absolutely rightfully so, and it can be thousands of dollars, thousands of dollars. So, to say, oh, I'm so poor, I need a job, whatever, and oh, he didn't give me a job or what, it's just when, you're very limited if you're accepting disability benefits, especially 100%, on what kind of job you can get. So, a simple background check, simple asking questions, a simple phone call to the victim, to the whistleblower, would have clarified this up very easily. And then the obstruction of justice wouldn't happen. But the whole purpose of that, in my belief, was to obstruct justice in our son's case. So that's, yeah, I had to take a deep breath on that. So let me answer questions now. Yeah, we want Richard's remains. Absolutely. Thank you, Danielle. Thank you for your prayers. So many military men and women are disappearing. Yes, Maria, and they're dying. They're dying. They're dying in their room, and then, like in Caleb's case, left to rot there for days and days. He was in the 5th stage of decomposition in his barracks room. I think that is something we can never forget, and never forget to tell people, because why do we have a military using up billions and billions of dollars, misappropriating them for not the defense of our country, okay? Um, right? When they're not even protecting our borders. They're not even, and look, you're talking to, ich spreche Deutsch. Mein Mutter ist Deutsch. Mein Vater ist Deutsch. My mother is German. My father is German. Um, of course, my father was born in Portland, Oregon. My mother became a citizen very quickly. Where did she become a citizen? She became a citizen at White Sands Missile Range in New Mexico, right? That was the first place she came to with my dad to the country because my dad was a missile repairman in the Army. And that's where she learned English. She learned English by watching Guiding Light and General Hospital while starching and ironing soldiers' uniforms. That's what she did. And she would learn um, all about this country and take her citizenship test, and that's where she became a citizen. And she gave up her German citizenship. So I know, all about immigration, um, but you have to have, if you have a country, just like you have a house, you have borders, you have a door that you need to come in, you need to be invited in, you need to do things right. And what we have right now is absolutely insanity, and it's hurting so many people. And we have right now veterans on the streets sleeping, even with billions of dollars being allocated for them. The monies are misappropriated. We don't have the the want. There's so much moral hazard that people are willingly doing the wrong thing. They're not looking after each other. They're not looking after the Constitution. They're not looking after and holding our leadership accountable. And so that's why this has been taking so long, 3 years, to get institutional support. But maybe God wanted that to be, because it's taken that time. We have not been just sitting around. We've been collecting evidence upon evidence upon evidence, and this has been growing bigger and bigger and bigger. And so, let's take down Goliath together, right? Let's take down Goliath and let's get some freedom. That's, uh, you know, I I just pray, God, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? I want my son. Um, and I want justice for my son, because at this point I absolutely know that he was code reded, he was murdered, he was a whistleblower, he was, privy to CID information, being in the CID intern, being with Thomas Kane in criminology course with Park University. He was absolutely privy to information because he was a guidon bearer. My dad kept saying that. And there was a lack of esprit de corps. There was no esprit de corps. And you see that if the soldiers are only calling their general CG and they don't know his name and he doesn't know them. There's something very wrong, lots wrong on Fort Bliss. So, yeah. But was she connected? Who was connected? Veronica Escobar, was she connected? How do you mean? With McKilligan Canyon? With the lead? The two, the that's a story and a half. That's kind of shocking, because when they first called us, these young ladies that said they smelled something up on top of McKilligan Canyon, they only spoke Spanish, and of course I had to use my very good friend that was there, that flew in twice, maybe more. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to ask her. Um, she's been just, I talk to her almost every day. She's been just absolutely the greatest team find Richard Halliday. And she speaks Spanish, and these two young girls spoke Spanish, and we had to translate it all and everything. And then Rob, we reported that all to the CID. The CID said that they would go and look. Oh no, they kind of put us off with that. And so Rob said, no, okay, then we'll go. And then they go, oh no, we'll go now too. And you have to go look back at some of these videos. Um, and the one where Rob is speaking in the truck is a good one because he's talking about it. That they go, oh yeah, okay, we'll go. And then they didn't even go to the location. And these two young ladies who were trainers, right? They were physical trainers. And it seems from what we heard from Veronica Escobar's office is that they were trainers for her in her office, right? So, they would, be the guides to hike up these mountains and train. And so they took Rob and Louie up that canyon and did not even tell them how to prepare for it. But, my husband is a 30-year veteran. He always comes prepared. And so, he did rather well, even though it was a very, very difficult climb and he's not, so young. Um, but he did really well. And they went up there, and then the next day, Veronica Escobar's office called us and said, oh, we didn't know that he would do so well on that hike. And, so that's the story. You can make out what you want on that. Did she know? I think she knew. Um, anyway, Veronica needs to do her job. Yes, she needs to do her job. Richard's father climbing the canyon makes you cry. He was strong and did well, but it was very dangerous. It was so dangerous, especially when you're not even told that it's going to be dangerous. It's just like, oh, yeah, come on up. And then I forgot to add that once he went with them, they both spoke English. So I think that is really strange. Anyway, um, prayers for Richard being found safe. Yeah. Maria Valencia. That's true. And everyone, everywhere sad. More needs to be done for good. Yeah. So many military. Yeah. No AKA Electrica. Oh, yeah. Thank you for reminding me her name. Connected. Since she knows details of the crime, was she a self-proclaimed prior to Richard's disappearance or after? Um, yeah. That I need to revisit that again because of this new information about the arms room. Um, the bottom line is we want the truth. And if I have to call her up, eat crow, apologize, because, don't forget that they just admitted that the FBI lost count of how many FBI informants were at January 6th. I'm going to tell you that there were a lot of turncoats with us also. Okay? Or double agents, whatever you want to call them. And so that became very, very clear. And looking at the funds that were spent on our son's case, when you have millions of millions, yeah, uh, that's so criminal, y'all. This is obstruction of justice and the tampering of remains. How can you do something like that? This is really serious. So now I need to go. I need to go and cry. I remember Sammy asking me, he goes, I know you cry sometimes. I said, Sammy, you don't understand. We cry every day. And, 3 years, do you get harder? Do you get calluses? Absolutely, you do. You do get calluses. Um, but the amount of obstruction and dereliction and criminality that we know about right now, um, it even gets through the calluses, and you just have to go cry, you know, cry for Richard, cry for the level of heartlessness, um, and the situation that our military is in. It's uh, it's devastating to our service members and to every one of our volunteer sons and daughters. And so, yeah, he was so excited. Richard was so excited, and you can read it in his letter to his Omi and Opie, to his grandparents. So there's a lot of evidence for everything. A lot of evidence for Richard, even for the border event. We were going over that today. Um, it's just, we have piles of it, and it all points to a code red after retaliating against a whistleblower and the cover up that cost billions of dollars. So, with that, thank you so much. And I have to say, the retaliation against a key witness in this case, do not forget that. And that's why that petition for the congressional inquiry is so important, because, we need to unobstruct this obstruction of justice. And we do have an officer of the court being a key witness in this case that is a whistleblower, because when I say officer of the court, I'm not trying to make him like, oh, he's so high. I'm saying he's a whistleblower. He's part of the system. And he was retaliated against instead of protected. And so here he is, a server of this country, and he was not protected as a whistleblower either. And so that is really, really important to realize. So thank you so much. And I will be back tomorrow, God willing.